let me see if this is going to work. Hang on. Nope. Yeah, no intro today. So we're not going to have an intro today, so you have to do a little song.
Oh, okay. my children are both studying music at uni, so.
Oh, yeah?
They could have done it for you.
Yeah, they're having a problem with the interface, I guess.
Oh, okay.
It looks like they're having a problem with more than that. Hang on. Oh, there's one. Hey, Monique. Yeah, it looks like there's a bit of a problem. Huh. Well, hang on. Let me see. Maybe it's this computer. Looks like people are rolling in here. Anytime we have these type of problems, we always have a great show.
Yeah.
So it's showing that people are coming in, but what are we doing? I guess we're live. It says nobody's here, but I see comments.
Yeah, there's loads of comments. Yeah.
Oh, this is strange.
Let
me try to refresh it one more time, and if not, we'll just jump into it. Come on now. What are we doing? So let me check Facebook. Hello, everybody. Just seeing if we're live. Yeah. Okay. Well, it doesn't show we are, but we are. We're here and we see you. Hello, Pakistan. All right, so we're going to run with it. Let me just look on the Facebook page. Yeah, it shows 18 people in the Facebook group.
Okay.
10 people I can see.
Yes, I can see it. It's all fine. I'll just check. You're good.
It's just not showing it here. Okay. So, yeah, this is kind of weird. Shows we got nobody here, but we got people here. So this is just a reflection, I guess, in a way, of what we've all been presented with for the last period of time, certainly the last 2-3 days. Kind of like, as an example, it's showing that nobody's here, but there are people here. You know, like
story of my life.
Well, things aren't always what they seem, you know.
Yeah.
and that's been, I think, a key for all of us in our own personal development. But why would the collective be any different? You know, I mean.
Oh yeah, I've had a lot of technology issues actually this last few days, so who knows? Every time I try to go live on Facebook, it plays up and messes about. Yeah.
I know you were planning on going live more. And I think I did see 1 or 2 videos since the last time we talked.
Yeah.
So I know you're very ultra sensitive in general, but also at least in part specific to what's going on in the collective in the energetic field and so on.
Yeah.
I mean, which is one of the reasons it's not a coincidence that you came on today. Which is either 21/1/2021 or 21/1 or 1/21/2021, depending on where you're at.
That is a big day in terms of us transitioning and resetting and all of that collective and the one and the all and you and your relationships with others, your relationship with yourself, relationship with your guides, everything. It's all hit a point, and energy today is horrendous. I don't know what it's like where you are.
What do you mean?
Yesterday and today, energy's been terrible.
How does it feel to you?
Well, you said you said that I'm sensitive, just to make you aware that everything that I voice is an awareness of sensitive people. That's my agenda. Okay, so that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm all fluff and love and gentleness, okay, because I'm not, but that's the way I word things, okay, to support those people. Yesterday, energy was all about anxiety for the sensitive characters. For the warrior type characters, it was much more about being fired up and angry and frustrated. that was coming across en masse, and also through personal stories. It's interesting because it's been just over a month since I spoke to you, and the whole agenda has changed. My position, I was sort of putting posts up for people to read, but just lately I seem to be more of a facilitator, and I'm like joining the dots of so many people commenting. Definitely there's been some big transformation going on of people wanting to know, whereas before they were a lot more accepting. Suddenly they're jumping up and wanting to know. And this is since that solstice date that everybody was saying this was going to be this big event, and then we had this sort of anticlimax almost after it, like, but it's now really showing itself. I noticed you had a chap you were talking to, David Manning, is that his name?
Yes, David Manning. Yeah.
And he was talking about how he picks up on the collective. And I think more than ever, we are all hypersensitive to the collective. It's just a matter of trying to tap people into how that feels and what they might feel. Yesterday, I'm in the UK. Yesterday, my daughter, she's a high sensitive. I know we've spoken about this before because you told me about your daughter. But out of nowhere, she just became completely overwhelmed and collapsed. We had to have ambulance and things.
Wow.
And she just suddenly felt this great whoosh of energy, and it was all too much for her. And I was not surprised yesterday. Today sees us move across into an easier space, I think, in terms of the harshness that's being picked up through people's nervous system. But we have got to really stop and think about this collective energy that we are sending out.
Yeah.
On an individual level. And this is the sort of transition that I've seen on my own posts on Facebook and my sort of encounters with people. It's the message is now, you are the collective, and as one, what you're going through, what you're aware of, how you think and see, the words that you use, which I know is something that the lady before me was saying, which I completely was saying yes when I was listening to her. It's about taking responsibility, because never before have we been so strong as a mass. And this is the message that I've been given about how we turn the world into a new place. Right? So my guide describes this to me, this current patch that we're in. And he did warn me that this was going to be a dark few weeks. And he told me to just put out to the sensitives, hold the light. Just keep saying that phrase, hold the light, hold the light. And that's all I've done on their behalf. And the holding the light is a bit what you would say, hold space.
Right.
It's about hold your horses, don't overreact, don't jump, don't assume. I've been observing everything, and I observed at one point your videos went off. And I was like, my thought was they're having technical issues like me. Right. But I saw so many quick comments about, it's some big agenda, We've got to be careful, really. We've got to hold the positives if we can. Yes, we've got to be aware, but we mustn't let it overtake us. We've got to be responsible for the vision that we have. Yeah. And now, more than ever, there's so many good, kind-hearted people opening up to actually people like yourself, and all the range, the spectrum of speakers that you're having on are giving people a chance to think about how different people are viewing things. And more just basic people like me are just opening up to, now I want to make a change.
Right.
And the way that we're going to do that is through our own self.
Yeah.
Right. So my guide's telling me that we are in a transition, and we are literally 1 foot in one world and 1 foot in another. And he's given me some narratives to explain to people, but it's all, it's all stories just to help people sort of cotton on. The reality is, you're here right now. Take responsibility for your actions, your thoughts. More than anything, we're aware of our thoughts. We didn't have that understanding before as a collective. And we do now, a lot more people on board with that. So that's where since I last spoke to you, there's been an absolute acceleration of all this change, or being aware suddenly of it all. It's like it's all sort of caught up.
Yeah.
So I was going to sort of ask you how you felt that, because our last conversation was very sort of chatty and, oh, isn't it a nice world, you know, but it's really turned itself inside out, hasn't it, in the recent weeks?
Absolutely it has. Well, and there's a story behind when we got removed, you know. So we did the David Icke show. We had David Icke and Sandra Walter was on after, and then Marie Batchelor was on. It was a good day. So I woke up the next day and I came down to get started, and all of our Soul Speak 5D videos were removed. Not all the other Soulogy videos, because we've probably done about 4,500 total videos, 2,500 Soul Speaks 5D, but they were all removed. And then I tested this system to see if we could go on, and we couldn't go on. So I kind of went for a second, not long, maybe 2 minutes. I went into, wow, maybe this thing is real. Maybe there's this big brother thing that's shut us off. And then I went, wait a minute, hang on. You got to practice what you preach. You got to engage the energy. You got to take responsibility, like you said. It's not anybody or anything out to get me or anyone else. So I went into the field. I drove up to the store. I pulled up the energy that presented itself. I said, what is this? So the energy came, and it was kind of like a pixelated energetic mass. And I said, what's going on? What are you? Why has this happened? You know, whatever questions I asked. And the interesting thing was, and I was in a parking lot at Walmart, and when I asked these series of questions to communicate with the energy that was presenting itself, all of a sudden I saw all of these souls get around the energy. You know, they all, in my mind, were kind of asking the same question or in the same place or something like that. There to support, you know, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I was told, it's for you. It's for you to make a new choice, basically. So I said, okay, I am looking at myself. I am looking at the same God particle, creation particle. We're all the same. So I integrated with the energy. I told the energy what I would like. Mm-hmm. I would like to be able to broadcast. I would like for but I ended it with, you know, I let go now and made what's the highest and best good for all involved occur. Yeah. So I let, and I came home, and I tried not to have any expectations, but I certainly didn't think it was all going to be fixed. And I came back in, and lo and behold, all the videos were back, and we were able to go live. So I'm not saying that I made that happen, but I'm not saying that I didn't make it happen. You know, my personal belief is that I was in the etheric field with many brothers and sisters who were at the same crossroads, I guess. Yeah. And what I am saying is, and what I can own without hesitation, is that I made a choice, which I think is not unique to me. I made a choice to engage the energy, which means engaging my abilities, my reality that I made in the image of what created me. And so that's my point. I just kind of like what Michelle was saying on the previous show, it has to do with taking responsibility and really working with the skills and abilities available to us that have been, let's say, unaccepted. You know, we're talking about imagination. We're talking about creation here.
Yeah.
And and the interesting thing was, so I mentioned something along these lines to David Icke, and I said, which was a really great interview, a very heart-generated interview from, in my opinion, his answers, because we didn't talk about all the stuff we know about. We talked about how do we get out of this thing, or how do we transform it? Anyway, he said, and I said to him, well, so what? I reached out and said, so what you're saying is that it's more powerful to, now I didn't use that example, but it was the same thing. It's more powerful to engage that energy, to tap into our own power, into our cooperative creation with the infinite, than it is to march, boycott, or protest. And he said, well, marching, protesting, boycotting is a symbol of that energetic thing that you just described. And he said, yes, this is the thing we can do, which is to change the external by changing the internal. Right. And I think the last thing I would say about that is, and I say this to myself, but I'm sharing it, which is, we're not, the old saying, the definition of insanity is to do the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. So we've already tried all these other things. Why wouldn't we give it a shot to try to increase the potential, or maximize the potential of our imagination, our intuitiveness, our telepathy, our creativity, and our God-given ability to replicate the process that created us? Transformation.
Yeah, really interesting, because one of the main messages that I keep being shown is to encourage people with creativity. And this is one of the major parts that's going to come up as we leave this little dark patch, which we can't deny. This is a tough patch, which is why I said to you, my agenda is always to sort of address those people who may be struggling with that. There's certain energy types that will pick that energy up like a static electricity, and it will make them feel very anxious.
Right.
So I sort of speak to them a lot. But one thing that I've been told is that the 2021 build-up of us coming forward, the beginnings of it,
right,
is creative energy. And creative types, especially people who, musicians, like especially rapping and things like that have got something to say.
Right.
This any form of creative expression and art form is going to come into its own in the sort of mid 2021, because it's going to be an important part. If you look through history about how art has influenced social understanding, creatives have the ability to speak in ways, not including language. Language is our problem at the minute. We've got so many barriers with labels and trying to get words out. Just art or music or dance, whatever, is the way of engaging people on an emotional level with social change. And, it's social change that we're going to have to see. And this is what I've picked up over the next 2 years. Social change is big.
Yeah.
And that doesn't come from us all jumping up and rioting and going out. Some people feel drawn to that. That's not, obviously you could see that wouldn't be me. But, what we're going to do is to feel in our own little lives, I don't like that anymore.
Right.
And I've changed my mind and I want this. And en masse, that will be huge.
Yes.
I believe that you were told, I heard you saying the last meeting, the last lady, you were saying that you were told that ascended masters included angelics and galactic guides, this sort of coming together of all these different guides. I think we've never seen that so much before as now.
Yeah.
That's because that's where this is going. That it's going. We've talked a lot in the last 10, 20 years. It's been very popular talking about your spiritual lineage.
Yeah.
I think that's going to fade out and we'll just be spiritual.
I agree with you. I agree with you. And that's what they were telling me last night. They were saying we're all here. We're all here, and we're coming in bigger and bigger numbers, if I had to put it in words. But we're not going to do it for you, because you are it. You are us.
Exactly. That's another thing that because obviously I started off doing this as the old-fashioned sort of reader thing, which has now become really outdated, and where people want to know what's going to happen, and the message is very much, the guide that I work with doing the readings is very much about reflecting back to them their sort of shadows and showing them where they've forgotten themselves and where they've forgotten their strengths.
Yeah.
Now this is the change en masse that I really see for the next 2 years. And we have to go through this dark time. You know, we have to, because we have to see what we don't like.
Yeah.
And this is so important that people recognize this tough time is vital. So holding the light, holding space for it is the way through it. And just as you would help somebody who suffers from mental health issues with anxiety or that type of overwhelm, just as you would say to them, just look at your gentle needs, what you need right now, and just manage that. That's the little light you're focusing on. That's what we all do.
Yeah.
And together that creates a huge fire.
Yeah. And I like what you said too about, because it's true. I mean, I'm doing it and I'm catching myself like, what's next? What's next? You know, what's the next? And we all know that this is no different than the television was for 50 years, you know, but I like, you know, what you said is what's going to happen. I mean, this is okay to feel that way, but and what I'm hearing you say is, well, if I pose the question to the universe and say, what's going to happen, which is kind of what I was doing last night, actually, when all that happened. And then what I got back was basically, to put it in your words, to paraphrase what you said, well, what do you want to happen? Right? Yeah. Like you act, you know, I'm talking to me or whatever, but you act like that you don't have any say so here.
Yeah.
You know, and on one level, at a human comprehension only level, we can't control, right? We can't, but at this multidimensional level, we can take this as far as we want to. So, you know, what's going to happen? Well, what do you want to happen?
Yeah. Spirit world don't want to keep spoon feeding is a message I keep thinking. And, you know, that does sound a bit rude and a bit harsh because, you know, I don't normally speak tough at all. I'm normally very softly, you know, but that's really got to be understood. We've got to stop looking for some, you know, and this is coming out in the way the world's playing out, this idea of people looking to be saved.
Yeah.
And teaming up, you know, whose team are you in? Who are you supporting? And it's gone very tribal with that. But it's all coming from fear and from anxiety and worries about insecurity, about the future and who they are. And they've got to get back to just connect with themselves. And, you know, that's the way to break. We've got to stop feeding these giants is the message I've got. And those giants exist within us and out in the world. We keep giving people power and then we moan when they take abuse it, you know. We've got to stop that, and we've got to find there's other ways of managing our society. And I think our whole society and community is going to go through this, and it will be like throwing it backwards and forwards like a tennis court almost, you know. It'll be good things, bad things, or you know, it's got to find the middle ground, to find the new way. And this is why we're seeing the polarization that we've got at the moment in so many aspects. It's in the spiritual world, you know, it's in the political world, it's just everywhere, isn't it? This, you know, everyone wants to know, well, what do you believe about this? What are your thoughts on this? And actually, my thoughts in general are there's a lot of fluff lying around.
Yeah.
Last time you asked me about action and non-action, and as you were talking just then about the vision you had, I could see, you know, do you know the sort of energy as it gets hot or intensifies, bouncing up higher, you know. And this is what happens with the emotions and frustrations and, you know, all of our inner experiences, our triggers. So this is the work that we've got to, if we want the world to be smoother and we want people to sort of hear our vision, we've got to be able to calm things down and listen and connect. And we are seeing this. It has started, but there's still so much intense bouncing around as well going on. You know, the grey area. It's the grey area, isn't it?
Yeah. And so, yeah, so it makes it easier to look at, although it's not always easy for me. I'm talking about how I have to hold myself accountable, uh, to look at what's happening and how people get attached to certain belief systems, and they're changing.
And
right?
why they do.
Right, right.
And do they understand why they do?
But to be able to look at it without judgment and see it. And so here is a question. You don't have to answer this question because it's kind of a I think it's kind of a tricky question, because we are multidimensional, multifaceted. So what perspective am I looking at this question from? But this has been mentioned for as long as I've been online, actively since 2013. Spiritual war. People saying there's a spiritual war. Some saying you have to align with one side or the other, in different variations of that. I personally see, I know it's tough to talk about stuff because words are words, and they have different meanings to different people or whatever. Some people take things more literal. Some people can look at it more metaphorically. But to me, there is a spiritual war. And the spiritual war is in here. It's not out there. It's in here. And I can't really verbalize it in my mind perfectly. But what I would say, it has something to do with bringing the mind and the heart into one, being one.
Yeah, right? I agree. I think you've got it. You've sussed it
And
already. It's because we're the grey area, and the grey area, it's like in politics, the voters, we're the voters. Vote for me. That goes on conditioned. That's gone on for centuries with religion.
Yeah.
We're in a different place now where people that will be watching this are more into what they would call a spiritual agenda, but there's still, religion is huge in the world, not over spirituality. And that is all about rules and do this or don't because I say so. So ultimately, this is all about manipulation. But what you're talking about, spiritual war inside, that's all your emotional.
Yeah.
That's all to do with everything that's ever happened to you since you were born, everything you ever heard. And unpicking that, it's a big, big business.
Well, and you brought up a good point too, because, and I love the show. I loved all the shows I do, but that day after David Icke was Sandra Walter, and I got a kick out of it because she's very much like you, very down to earth, highly sensitive. And I said to her something about, God, you're always like, do you ever get triggered? And I've asked a lot of people that, but I really meant it, wondering if she did, because she's so connected and so dedicated for so many years, right?
Yeah.
And she just started laughing. She says, of course I do. And she started telling the story about how at the end of last year, she saw, and I don't know if I'm going to get this exactly right, but I'll get the general idea. She said, I started to notice that everybody was being brought down to a level playing field. And sometimes when we say we're way showers or we're light workers, she said, well, we've had to take our crown off.
Yeah, I saw her say that. Yeah.
And that's what I was thinking when you just said what you said, because when I look at some of the stuff that was presented to me for me on the news feed or whatever, I saw the same fervency that we would have associated with religion. In religion, hey, if you don't think this way, you're over there and we're over here.
Yeah.
But people doing it in political stances.
Yeah.
Do you believe in Q or you don't believe in Q? Well, then you're over there, or whatever the topic was. But it was in a spirituality community, what we would call spirituality, right?
Yeah.
Where you would think we're inclined to be zero pointed and in that middle ground and that neutrality, having these. But to me, that's what it reminded me of. It reminded me of, wow, that's the same type of exclusivity that we learn to disengage from other energies such as religion, such as organizations, countries, nationalism, that type of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're all being brought down to the same level, which to me is the deconstruction of all belief systems. And I know that sounds like new agey and all that, but if we, like you said earlier, why am I doing that? Why am I thinking that? Where did that come from? And I think I'll end on this, that we have actually, many of us have actually done enough work. We just don't realize how much effect we've actually had. And although it looks kind of distorted out there, there is a invisible hand of providence that we're driving through our own internal work. And I think it's growing.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll just share with you something lovely that happened that gave me a lot of hope, where I was only doing my shopping in a grocery shop, and a lady had a little tiny baby in a cradle in her arms. And, normally you look at a baby and smile and it might smile back. I had my mask on because of the law.
Right.
And I'm not kidding you, this baby engaged with me, and it couldn't have been more than a month old, tiny. It looked straight into my eyes, and a big smile, a beautiful, loving smile came across its face, which I didn't even think it would be old enough to smile. And I felt it was speaking to me, saying, I know you and I love you.
Wow.
And I was just absolutely, I put my mask down and said to the lady, do you mind if I take my mask down, because your baby's trying to engage with me and I feel that it's rude to not smile, and she was fine, but I want people to remember to look for the signs that this new loving energy will win.
Yeah.
Despite the fact that it all seems so chaotic, that's all coming from within us and where we've been. Everything that's happening is being played out. It's got nowhere else to go. It's got to come out as stories. All right. So people are playing the roles, they're playing it all out.
Right.
But this new energy will come forward. And the more of us that click into that and understand, right, I don't like much of what I'm seeing right now, but I can make that change. I can be different through the way I speak to my partner, my children, parents, whatever. All of us, we're all spiritual sort of speakers, but we've all got human lives. We're all living with relatives that are ill or old or vulnerable, or we all know the human reality. And I think the more we stick to that, the better. It's ego problems that are causing all this chaos to run right, and for everyone to be sort of irate and panicking, thinking that things are blocking them and they can't be who they want to be and what they want to be. Get back into a state of peace. Soon enough, the more of us in that state will open. That's a portal, isn't it?
Yeah. And that was a big one for me last week, because obviously I've been focused on, part of my life has been focused on Soulogy and expanding, and I've downloaded Build a Network, and this is what it looks like. And I'm not a tech idiot, but I'm not a tech savvy programmer. So I've struggled with, how do I do this? And last week it was, dude, just let it go.
Yeah.
Just let it go.
Yeah.
And get up every morning and do what you can do, and cut that, or allow that stuff just to go away. That you have to do this, you need to do that, you're not good enough, and all those old programs. So I look at that, and I did. I took it. We have all these different steps, right? There's all different levels of everything, and I leveled up, and it wasn't easy, but like with the example I gave you at the top of the show in regard to the getting shut down, I see results. So if I look at, for instance, I can only really speak honestly about my own life. If I look, for instance, at the last, I think we're going on a couple of years that we've actually been together with just a little bit of separation, Morgan and I, and look at the evolution of our relationship and of ourselves. if you look at us today versus 2 years ago, we've always had a great relationship. We've always been very connected. Don't get me wrong, but there's no projection anymore. There's a certain ambience that's like effortless now, like it's the foundation's there. So what I'm trying to say is that, to me, is what you were saying is where it starts. And it's what Michelle Anderson was saying before. It starts with us. And it's not like step 1, step 2, step 3. It is that piece. It is that self-empowerment and self-responsibility. And then it starts to permeate outside into the circles further away from your core, right?
Yeah.
This is how, like the tuning fork, this is how it works, And I think that's another thing, is that one of the strengths that I see in the last year, and as we get into this year, particularly the feminine, which is mostly seen in the female incarnate, that are stepping up and being seen and allowing that code to be seen, not to mention those that still continue to do work on behalf of humanity through their own self development, and they do it in the privacy of their life. They do it with the ethers. That's effective as well. But I think that energy, that code, is what's pulling us up, and it is feminine, and it's in me too. It's in all of us. It's not the rigidness anymore. It's this free-flowing, somebody just put it, free-flowing, creative, like you were talking about. It's not the same language that we've had in the past.
Yeah. It is. We have to get that balance, don't we, with the two energies, because we're seeing currently everything being knocked down and taken down. Do you understand? And that, to me, that needs the male energy.
Yeah, definitely. The new
but
male.
We're also seeing this holding the space for nurturing and this newness to come in. So they're just both as strong as each other, I think. But I was watching two very enlightened men having a brilliant talk, and it was all very guided with feminine energy about their own issues, and it was all open. And this needs to be more. This is why it's so important that you're a male on here, because I feel that's a big agenda. The spiritual world, there's a lot of religious men. It's always been about religious men, hasn't it?
Right.
More than women.
Right.
But the spiritual men need to step forward, and they need to model. Men, to me, seem to need role models.
Yeah.
Especially young males.
I agree with that.
My son's 23, and he shows me a lot of people. He likes Jordan Peterson and people like that sort of promote being a young man in the world and how to do it.
I like Jordan Peterson a lot.
Brilliant guy, yeah. And all these sort of people who wouldn't call themselves spiritual talkers are having a huge impact, because they're talking about emotions and your understanding of yourself, which is something that men didn't. This idea that men go in the pub and talk about football and that's old and labeled, and this is all changing. So through you see, you're lucky because you've got a relationship. Most people that come to me are single and want a relationship and want to understand what's gone wrong and how. That is a big part of why people want readings. So you guys have to remember that you're sort of pioneering anything you're learning from the strength of being in a couple that's going good, and spiritual understanding, both being enlightened. I think you've got a big responsibility there.
Oh yeah.
To speak out about how you weren't in that space as well.
Yeah.
And what's gone on before that.
I totally agree with that. And I think that's part of what comes through. This is, to me, a collective, anything that we do that, from here is a collective production of everyone that sees it live, or everyone that sees it on a replay, because we know there's no time. I mean, this is a collective thing, but We were shown, 4 years ago, Soulogy actually came in and said, I'm my own consciousness now. And you two are the primary caretakers. It's founded on this masculine, feminine, divine love, whatever. And there'll be other people come in, which is exactly what's happened. But to your point, what you were saying earlier about, because you're right, and I noticed this last year about mid-year, there was more men stepping forward, but it was a different type of man. It was the man that was like the ones you were talking about from yesterday. Somebody said yesterday on the show, one of the shows that we did, 3 or 4 shows, I can't remember. They said the patriarch will be dismantled by the men. And I went, oh, I've not heard that. And then I thought, oh, wait a minute, that makes sense. Because if I look at the parallels, the microcosmic of my relationship, I've always understood that we're paralleling the collective energy. And we are on the forefront with many, many other people, And so I learn through my interactions with the feminine energy, which is incarnated in front of me, but also within me, that nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to elevate until I give up my false power, until I give up what is not real. And it was quite a journey, and I see that happening now. Now I remember who was saying this yesterday, the lady that was on, but was basically saying that the human man, right, really has to get to a space or a place of I don't even know what to do now. Like everything that I had, I wasn't. Now what do I have left? It almost just stripped down to nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's happening. But at the same time, there's that partnership with that feminine energy that's been very pronounced for the last few years and expanding through people like yourself.
Well, that's good. But there's many issues that are coming through on a community level, such as that you said, the gender. It's just one, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the way that I've been shown the sort of hope of the people making the new changes, the transformation, rather than us looking to leaders.
Yes.
Right. Because at the moment, that's what we're seeing, and that's what we're all kicking off against. We don't like what we're seeing. It doesn't matter where you are or what you're from. It doesn't matter whether it's politics or religion or, industry even. Leaders are going to change, and this is one of the things that I've been shown, that the angelic agenda to support people is what they're giving me, a triangle of understanding, with they're saying environment is the key issue. Because without this environment, we can't exist. Right, so the environment's the key issue, and then the two that support it underneath are community and communication. Communication includes things like technology, medical advancements, political systems, industry, finances, all of that. So I do want to go back to saying that I really believe, I know that we're in a very dark place and it's a harsh energy, but my agenda to come on, if I was going to go onto Facebook Live today, 21/1/21, is to say this, we can turn this around. The bigger you believe it and the bigger you visualize the world that you want to live in and make it real in every small step that you can, the quicker it transforms.
Yeah.
And I've been told that within 2 years we make big progress, and everything's all about the one and the all. Like I say, that's never before been understood as much as it has now.
Yeah.
And you doing this program has been a massive part of that. You don't realize, so I always say to people, don't underestimate the power that you are having, even if because people feel so helpless and suppressed at the moment. But from what I'm seeing, that is not the case. We are very powerful, and we are coming from the heart, right? So even in your stories, through the thousands of videos, whatever it is you've done, we pick up a sort of story of your life, and you were one point homeless, and then you all these relationships, and then you've got now you're sussed, you know, and you're really happy. Even that is, you've turned the world around. But actually putting that story out to the world is passing that little flame on to other people. Right. So I believe that we're going to see a big change, big transition of much more kind-hearted, believing people, believing in each other, believing in community support coming through, and leadership will be a big part of that. Those that are in control, those that have say over things that happen, and the way the systems are set up will change. But we have to stand up and say now why we don't like things as they are. Otherwise, this is why we're all so riled up.
Yeah,
we've got to come out of this place of acceptance. We're not all going to have the same beliefs. We're not all going to think the same. We've all come our own journeys. We've all had our own experiences. So that's going to be so layered. But the one theme through the middle that we're going to pick up is this idea of, we don't want to be seen as the grey area of we are the voters, or someone, you know, we've got to support this or that idea or believe this or that. We want to move forward as a team of middle ground, loving energies, like just as you would with the chakra system, the heart center, you know, moving forward and channeling from the heart center instead of from the mind all the time.
Yeah.
To me, it's this. That would be the spiritual sort of explanation of what goes on en masse.
Yeah.
And that will mean that those people that are sort of shying back and gentle and quiet are at the moment really having to face why they don't feel good about life. They can't be accepting of it and just carrying on. They're going to have to sit and think, what's making me feel so horrible? You know, and they're going to have to start thinking that they've got to speak up. And these people will come through and be the ones that speak up about the way they think things should change. And I'm not talking about some global Dr. Eden person. I'm talking about people, for example, staff in a home for old people, and the system isn't working, and the things are wrong, and the people aren't getting the help they need. The quiet, sensitive characters that have always just got on with their work and helped everyone and been the blessing to all those older people will have to stand up and say, we need to make some changes. This is not working. So what we're seeing on a big level, because obviously what we talk about mostly is what we see on the media. You don't see the media tell you all the little stories. You know, we see things about the politicians, the famous people. But the everyday life is what the spirit world sees, and the angelic realms and the galactic guides. They're not looking to find, let's give this vision to this politician and let them take over the world and deal with it. They're looking to us to connect together through our own emotional state, which is why so many people are going through this inner change of trying to work out, what the heck has happened to me? Who am I? How did I get here?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I'm meant to be here. I don't know if I like this place. That's why we are experiencing all this turmoil at the moment and upset. It will come around to be the spark of the fire of a passionate new desire for hope for humanity to actually be in a better position. And this will be what people would want to see as like the golden age.
Yeah, exactly.
My guide's really keen to tell me all the time that anybody like you and I speaking like this, we have to remember that we are in a minority and we are still very much the prophets of this.
Yeah.
We may never see this evolve in our lifetime. You know, I could live to 116 and I still may not see. I may see more of it, but we have to keep promoting it because it comes through on a wave.
Well, the one thing I think we can say, and I really totally resonate with everything you're saying, especially never underestimate the power of one unique and equal soul. And then when you have two or more, then it even gets bigger. But one thing that I feel is absolute is because if you go back to 2012, I'm just using that as because that's the date everybody used, there was still a lot of pushback. You know, there was always an up leveling, but 2012, 2013, 14, 15, 16, there was like a push, you know, you 2 steps up, 1 back, 2 step. But something's really changed in the last year. And there's been like right? Like verifiable proof, like more validation, more people getting things at the same time. And what that tells me is that even though we may be a minority, that there's substance there and that it's not being debilitated and it's not being diminished. It's just steadily growing and growing and growing to the point now where I think, which a lot of people have made reference to, especially the last 3 or 4 months, certainly since the last 2 or 3 weeks, which is, wow, more and more and more people are waking up. And I think it's fairly, you know, common knowledge now, it wasn't to me a couple of years ago, but the first stage of transformation is awareness.
Yeah.
And awareness is not cognitive dissonance. Awareness is consciously going, okay, I may not like that. I may not resonate with that. I may not want that to be true, but I've got to be open to the possibility, you know, whether we're talking light or dark, you know, I got to be open to the possibility that anything is possible, you know.
Yeah. So. And one of the things that I've been really given this week is this idea of stop thinking you've woken up and that's there you are, good, you know. I wrote a post recently this week that had so much engagement that people just clicked with, which was called, what is it like waking up from being woke?
Yeah, I like the one I used to ask on the show. I might have asked you when somebody would come on for the first time. I would say, so when did you wake up? And 2 people, the first one that did it was a young girl, one of the first young people we had on. She must have been like early 20s. I said, when did you wake up? She said, this morning. But I got what she was saying. She was basically saying that every morning you're waking up again. And not, you know, obviously to that place, that humility that you're talking about. What's it like to wake up after you're woke?
I think the young people are way ahead of us.
Yes.
They haven't got round to having their say yet.
Yes.
If you look at the culture of the things that they resonate with, you know, because my target audience isn't normally for younger people, so I don't discuss that type of thing. But if you look at the games that they're playing, about the most famous one I can think of is Last of Us, and Last of Us is about the pandemic of the zombie apocalypse.
Yeah.
But if you ever get the chance to understand that game and the characterization that goes on, the understanding that goes on within the characters, those youngsters are learning fast so much. They're up to speed with everything me and you are saying already on an artistic level.
Oh, yeah.
An emotional level. And like I said, I really believe the youngsters are going to be the propelling force once we can shift them back into, you know, at the moment they're all feeling sort of hidden away and locked away, aren't they? Especially the late teens. But these individuals have the answers and they will lead us forward. I've got great hope in those, especially whereas I'm an ex-teacher.
I believe that.
I've seen come through the enlightened, that sort of, we went through waves of different sort of times. We went through a time when there was all these indigos everywhere. And now we've moved on from this era because we don't label things like that anymore. But it was our understanding at the time. And indigos were all these rebellious kids that were, you know, and then we had all these crystal characters come through.
Yeah.
And this will continue. This is resonating through, but we've got to create the space for them to come through and come forward.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Yeah, I
I'm
agree.
ever positive. People probably think that I'm too light, but
No, I don't think so.
I'm ever.
No, you got that Cali energy beneath that veneer. You're not here to mess around. But you know, you're right about these kids. If you just look at it from a what scientific, you know, biological way. So it's been known for years and years and years. It's not rocket science, and it's not, you know, it's factual. That is that, you know, when we're born, we learn at warp speed. You know, and there's been a lot of studies on this. That, you know, 2 years, 5 years, 7 years, 10 years. So
Yeah,
you're learning, and the amount of stuff that you're learning continues to kind of ascend. And then
yeah,
we hit about 18 or 16, and then it starts to do this. Part of that is because maybe we're not in school, or maybe we don't read enough, or I don't know. But the point is the frequency of information coming in goes on a downslope. Now I think that changed. I know it did in around 2012, because after about 2010, the internet really blew up. I got online in 2013. It seemed like there was a lot of empath groups. There was a lot of starseed groups. There was a lot of information starting to be shared. Not to mention, you have everything at your fingertips. So we're all researching and getting more information into our field. And so it was basically a reversal of that, you know, of that typical pattern. So then if you throw kids in there, kids are already in that mode of accelerated learning. Then you
yeah,
throw the internet at their fingertips, and anyone that's seen a kid with you know, they're like,
yeah, yeah,
you
yeah,
know, I mean, I took typing in 8th grade. I don't know how I would do a keyboard if I hadn't done that. But my daughters, they've never taken it, and they're just like, you know,
yeah.
they're like, and I'm like, but that's to me symbolic of how that their brain's working. So I totally agree with you. I do feel that they will find their voice, and sooner than later, because if you look at any substantial revolution in you know, contemporary history, let's say even just go back 300 or 400 years, the young people are always the impetus. If you look at the China Revolution that happened about 20 years ago, it was all the young people filling up Tiananmen Square.
Yeah.
You know, look at Hong Kong, look at a lot of the stuff going on in the world, even like the 60s in America. I mean, you have the young people on your side, you're a force to be reckoned with. And to your point, they're not really on either side. If you think about the topics today, I don't see any, you know, I don't see any widespread narrative or commentary being put out there by that type of energy.
Mm.
It's very interesting. You know, it's very interesting.
Well, you asked me at the beginning about spiritual war.
Yeah.
And I sort of spoke about community and that sort of thing. But I just want to say that, you know, I'm obviously a mum of, I've been through a time of teenagers and all their friends coming around. So I've seen the spiritual effects of what these kids resonate with as well. And, you know, they're not afraid to work with the darker
Right.
energies that I wouldn't touch with a barge pole.
Yeah.
And, you know, they can take down some of this dark energy that we're seeing. As I told you about yesterday, what happened to my daughter and what I was saying about the energy, I do believe there's a lot of psychic attack being used.
Yeah.
Of course, that's not going to be spoken of, but most sensitive people can pick it up. What we've got to do is just be aware of our own head and our own narratives and our belief systems, because psychic attack can work in two ways. It can make you physically unwell, it attack your nervous system, but also it can get into your mind, and it's a form of conditioning. So you can, if you don't like the word psychic attack, think of the word conditioning.
Yeah.
But it is the speed at which you connect words in your mind to understand how you feel, or how you are perceiving why you feel like you do. And I think that one thing I would like to say the next few weeks for everyone through this time where everything's been shaken up, right? We've got to hold on in our own head, our own understanding of a narrative of who we are, where we've been, why we think like we do. And then we've got to think deeply about how we are connecting the dots too quickly before we act.
Yeah.
And we've got to remain in a peaceful state, and we've got to trust and know that there's a bigger agenda going on. Don't keep fighting against what if you keep thinking that you're being suppressed and you can't do your life because this, that, and the other, which is one of the messages I get a lot from people at the moment. Help me out because I'm wasting time. I can't do anything. My life's blocked and I'm all angry about it. All of that, it's got to be that they've got to go back and look within themselves. The more people that recognize that and do it, the quicker we move forward.
That's right.
The more we stand up and be angry, the more we are blocking it.
That's why what you said earlier, which it should be restated, like what you said about don't underestimate, your power, but you even took it further. It's just as potent, really more potent, to localize that to your daily interactions, moment by moment. How you smile at somebody, shake someone's hand, you know what I mean? Your energy. That's the way it goes. That's the way it works. I mean, you might have somebody who can get online and have 1 million people in the audience, and maybe they're really on their game and impact, but it doesn't take anything away from these individual acts that we have, which really, when you get right down to it, what you're talking about, what really gets down to how you're honoring yourself. How are you thinking and speaking and acting in alignment with your heart or not?
Yeah.
And it's true.
Yes, because you're putting into the world, aren't you? You're manifesting everything you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And now we can see the proof of it, right? Like so many people have talked about instant manifestation becoming more of a reality. I think of something, and I mean, it happens to Morgan and I more and more every day. She'll be like the other day I went to, I hadn't gone to Starbucks in 6 months, right? And the night before she was thinking, oh, I wish she'd go to Starbucks and get me a vanilla chai latte. So I went to Starbucks. I never go to Starbucks. The next morning I get up, I brought her back a vanilla latte. She's like, did you know last night? But these things happen all the time. They happen all the time. Our experiences together without words many times are the same experience when we review it. But I know this isn't unique to us. It's happening everywhere.
But all that is showing you that that's what's going on everywhere.
Exactly. That's my point.
I've spoken to you twice in my lifetime. I bet there's many times when, some higher being has looked down and me and you are both thinking the same thing, right? Yeah. This is the power, the collective power. My guide said to me that, he's always going on at me about tell everyone to step into the new. But you said the young girl that said she woke up this morning. Brilliant, because I had to learn that when I went through terrible divorce and problems going on in my life. My guide kept appearing to me every morning and say, just pretend that we've just put you into that vessel and you don't know what went on before. Right now, he's really keen to get this message out to people at the moment that you're in a new era, not just a new day.
Yeah,
you are completely renewed. You were saying all this before Christmas. If you go and look on your shows back in the autumn, you were saying this. We're on a reset. There's something that was you've sort of forgotten. You've moved forward. I think you forget. The sort of buzzwords of the time, if you know what I mean, because we're always looking for what's going on now, what's going on. We're always trying to push, but we are in a whole new era. We can't afford to carry baggage, and what we are seeing playing out on the world stage at the moment, a lot of that baggage is being shown to be rotten eggs.
Yeah.
so we can take it down. This is what's going on. You know, we've got to recognize that like I say, everything's the one and the mass all together. So everything you're going through, so you and Morgan having connections, that's just showing you that we are all having connections.
Yeah.
We're all connected, we're all meeting, we're all having these experiences. So people must not feel disempowered that they are only one struggling on and it's all hard. They are not. If we could rise up and see all those people, it would be a mass amount of people that just want a better world, and that wanting a better world will bring it in.
That was the channel. I don't know if you saw the first part of the show, the previous show, but that was, I referenced it last night in particular when we laid down. Morgan channeled a little bit.
No, I didn't see it.
And it was interesting because normally if she's going to channel, because sometimes we put our hands together and it's all telepathic and, you know, and nothing said, but last night, and she was quiet, and it was 4:00 in the morning. So I'm laying down thinking, you know, after a couple of minutes, I didn't hear anything come out of her. I just thought, well, we're just going to do our own thing quietly. But then she spoke and she said, and it was a very pure intel, because I can tell. Normally always is with her, you know, but this one I could tell it had a lot of energy behind it, that there was a shift after midnight of the energy in the world. And I thought, oh, I wonder where this is going. You know, like, did it shift back, forward, you know? And she said she could see the earth grid, and she could see all these lights. There were already lights, but I mean, there were many more lit up where people had made a personal choice, you know, to move away from cognitive dissonance, or to open their mind, you know, to be more receptive. The type of, you know, my feeling was the type of choice that does create transformation, you know. And the other thing that she said too was that you'll be seeing more and more evidence of this very quickly. And if I think about,
she's right.
Yeah,
she's absolutely right.
Yeah. I figured you might have a beat on that. But you know, when I think about one of the big factors, we think of the mainstream media as the mainstream media, but YouTube is part of that. Facebook is part of that. Now, granted, there's truth out there, don't get me wrong. But when I was thinking about what she said this morning, I was like, well, look at the media. Now, on one hand, everyone's going, regardless of what your politics are, they're going, wait a minute, this is really getting silly. I mean, it's such a, you know, so obvious that there's a narrative being pushed, or multiple narratives, and there's no evidence behind it. So on one hand, you can get attached to, oh my God, look at what they're doing. But on the other hand, the other side of it is, I relate to what she channeled last night, which is people going, you know what, this is ridiculous. Like, I'm not gonna go to that reservoir, to that well, to pull out my information or wisdom or knowledge. I'm gonna go somewhere else. It's like we've tried everything but this. And I think what you're saying is true, that there's more evidence, there's more resonance, there's more synchronicities and validation, that we're all getting it. Because one thing about our journeys, your journey, I bet you can relate to this. If you go back a few years ago, did you feel kind of alone? I mean, faith was a lonely existence a few years ago.
Yes.
And now there's more and more and more and more people in our circle.
Yeah. Well, do you know, you said you asked people when they woke up.
Mm-hmm.
You didn't ask me that. And I want to tell you when I woke up.
When did you wake up?
When I was a baby in the cot, I looked out my eyes. I'm not kidding this, right? And I can remember this clear as anything, that I was thinking, I'm an observer. If I knew the language, that's what I would say. I'm an observer. And I've had that my whole life. So I'm getting on now. I wonder what these new babies are going to be like. These new special babies if I knew that 50 years ago, but you see, like you're saying, I've only just had the chance to come out here and say this.
Yeah.
It's not been acceptable.
Right.
This is what one of the things that my guide speaks to me about, the 5D change, one of the transitions that we see, this understanding of 5D. Yeah. It's just about making language and making things acceptable to recognize that we are 5D. Always have been.
Right.
We just haven't been allowed to be it. So it's all been suppressed down. And, you know, Morgan's image of all that like light around the whole world. I did a group on Facebook to talk, anybody who wanted to hear what my guide had told me about how we go into the new world. And he's broken it down into bridges to explain the like narratives. But one of the things that I said on to those people was, imagine if all of us that clicked with this agenda, you know, we were watching the news and we were sick to death of hearing this going on and that, and getting angry and thinking, oh, for goodness sake, you know, all we want to do is to be with our family and to have a good life and be happy and do things we want to do and love everybody. Imagine if we all just went outside our front door and held up our phone, the light, the torch, like a concert. When the kids go to a concert, they all shine their torches. That's the image I'm getting when you were talking about what Morgan is seeing.
Yeah.
And like you said, that you can call it a grid, whatever you like. These words are just our current way. Like I said, we go through fashions of using words to express our current understanding, and then we push beyond them. But that idea, that's the truth. That's what holding the light is. You know, if you have a bad day, like yesterday, I had a very bad day and completely worried about my daughter, and you know, I had to remember that if I go off into a state of complete anxiety and panic and everything's disastrous and why me, you know, that energy is going to ripple out.
Right.
I have a responsibility to manage and bring things back into balance and bring things back into light and work on the actions that take steps forward. And that's my message all the time to people. It's about the simple things. It is not always about what David Icke thinks or what whoever is saying. It's about what your life is presenting to you and how you are making choices to make it move forward. And it's not always easy. It's a hard time.
Yeah.
It's a time for us having to be very brave, as you said. Me coming out and saying all this, oh my gosh, if I could go back in time and tell myself, look, I think I'd have a heart attack. No way.
Yeah.
But it's time.
Yeah, it is time.
We're in a whole new era. And we are moving forward day by day with each little thing that we do, even if that's a self-care day. Remembering that we matter and we love ourselves and that we've got this one body and we've got to make it work as best as it can for as long as it can.
Yeah.
You know, that's so important. It's all being lost with all this talk about, should we have a vaccine? Should we wear a mask? And they're narratives that I was going to say to you that a lot of the real narratives are very subtle. Those are almost masking the true narratives, the true conditioning that's been hit at people about you're a small person. You're an ordinary person.
That's right.
You know, and I think people like you and I have got to encourage everybody to stand up and feel
that's a big one, and that's a great example too. And I have to relate it to myself again because that's all I can speak.
That's what we have to do. Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. But I had this thing where I actually had people say this to me that, you know, we have a lot of different people on this show, and a couple of people said to me, I don't think they respect your wisdom, you know, your knowledge, your energy, whatever. And that's not really what I got hung up on. What I got hung up on was why, and this again is over the last 2-3 weeks, I know what I'm supposed to do. Why don't I have the things I need to do it to the extent that I've been shown? like, and so on, you know? So it's a little bit of, you know, obviously victim consciousness programming, but the important thing was I went back to what my friend said, and I said to myself, wait a minute. The fact is not outside of you, it's inside of you, Todd. Where's your level of self-respect? How much do you respect yourself? How much do you believe in your connection? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then I'm working on it. Like I'm still working on it, and I'm like I'm in the middle of this another transformation of reaching a threshold or a plateau at least of a new expanded essence. Which what does that translate into? It translates into my ability as a conscious, responsible co-creator and manifester. Right? I mean, the universe is our biggest cheerleader, and it's also our biggest mirror. You know, like you were saying about the things that are you know shown to you every single day. They're messages. It's all messages to us, like what you went through yesterday.
Yeah.
I mean, the internal dialogue that you shared with us, that's where it all happens.
Yeah. And so my understanding of why we're in such a polarized world at the moment comes from a basic understanding of just knowing about the tarot and what it's teaching about how you evolve as a person.
Right.
And one of the teachings is that like a test of faith where you're sort of squashed between two pillars, if you like. And they represent this or that, right or wrong, this way or that way. And you know, when we talk about these portals of transition that we have, and these go on inwardly with us, like these aha moments, but they also happen to us en masse, don't they, at certain times. This breakthrough of it's not this or that. It's like a pea popping out of a pod. That creates the new.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what the message for 2021 that my guide is on and on about, is the creatives will burst out through being squeezed like that.
Yeah.
They will burst out and, you know, it'll break out. And that will create a new doorway, pathway that nobody knew existed.
Yeah.
And this is why you must be open all the time to stop accepting the troubles of the world as they are right now. Let's open our minds to the fact that transition works and that we are part of it. We are not a small person, as the world is trying to tell us. We are someone highly important. Those people who follow the angelic understandings, they would get that. The angel's message is always that you're important, you're deserving, you're not small. Every thought and action that you make has a huge impact.
That's right. That's exactly right. And the product of these thoughts and choices and words and actions that we take that we think are minuscule, you know, are actually what creates what we're seeing on the global scale.
The ordinary. It's the ordinary life.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is another message that I'm always getting is about we've got to go back to basics. We've got to strip back in our own personal lives and go back to more basic understanding, things like looking after our family and our friends, and our community,
ourselves. Yeah.
It's
the extraordinary ordinary.
Yeah, because exactly everything, as you know, I tell you what, the way they showed it to me recently was as a star that imploded, you know, a black hole.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they're showing me recently what we're going through. So that's because I said to them, why do people keep asking me that they feel they're going backwards, or they feel we're not making progress, we're going backwards? But we are dropping back into a more magical unknown.
Right.
Got to trust in it, that's all.
And you think about it, like I often go back to my childhood, which would be the years of, like, say 3 to maybe 6, where I would spend a lot of time in my backyard. We had a rock pile with this big giant lava rock and all these rocks in the corner, and in the boundless universe that I played in. you know, it was full of dragons and spacemen and planets and, you know,
Yeah.
and there was no, there might have been a toy here and there, but, you know, and I often look at that as a metaphor for where I'm at. And it's what you're talking about. It's my way of pulling back from the laptop and the mic and going into that space to come back into this space and express.
Yeah.
It's like a newness, like a childlike wonder type of frequency, like but it's definitely based on pure imagination. And I've made a concerted effort to try to re-tap into that, because as the days go by, I realize that no matter what I do, that's my most powerful tool.
Yeah.
You know,
I would ask that your most powerful tool is your mind. So I would ask that people think to observe their own, let's call it narratives, because that's the word of the moment.
Yeah.
And before people jump on board with, I believe this, and this is happening in the world because of this, that, and the other, and I found it. You could make up any narrative and find the facts if you wanted it.
That's right.
Because there's so much out there at the minute about, you know, and that's what humans are made to do. They're made to put pieces together like that. That's part of our keeping safe as cavemen.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, it's to do with the amygdala, isn't it, in the brain? But I think that people have got to be really questioning themselves all the time, especially posting and sharing on social media, because they are only fueling an agenda that someone somewhere is going, whoa, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, it's like if I say, I don't want to be rude, but like if I say, oh, Elvis is alive, I can go out and find plenty of information to substantiate Elvis is alive, including interviews, documentaries. You know what I mean? I know that's kind of a silly example, but you know, it's.
No, it's not. It's right. You've got to make it silly because the things that we're seeing are so fantastical. Everyone's believing in.
That's true.
And there's so many versions of this, that, the other, and so many truths and facts. And
we saw so many narratives just yesterday. I mean, I admit I'm looking at the stuff that's just, it's like watching a reality show. And I have to be careful not to get charged. And I did. I admit it. I didn't get charged on one side or the other so much. It just charged, period. Like I'm not focused on me. But there's so many different narratives. You see the same picture or video and you get 3 different versions of what's going on, right? So I don't know. I'm with you. That was a very good point. I stand corrected. It's getting silly, and I think it's going to get sillier, you know, and maybe for some people that feels painful, and until we look at ourselves. I mean, it's like we're being put into a corner.
Yeah.
And we're being, you know, we're being challenged. And that's what the transmission I got last night was. It was just basically, we're here. If you want to see us, that's great. We can do that. And here's the, it was everybody. It was the Andromedans, Lyrians, Alpha Centaurians, you know, Arcturians. And then there was the angelics and the archangelics and the other divine essences. And they said, we're here, you know. And you can see us as much as you want to, but that's not the point. The point is we are you, and it's up to you, and you being us, right?
Yeah. And we are a blank canvas.
Yeah.
Yeah. I notice that, you know, there's always someone wanting to say how they know this and that's going on and this is happening in the world. And you sort of say, is there a lot of intervention going on? Do you know what I mean? You often say to people, do you think there's a lot of intervention going on in the world?
Yeah.
All the intervention from where I'm sitting is all coming from our own heads.
Exactly.
We're anything that, if I want to believe something, I can go and find a group of people to back me up and be my friends and support me if I want.
Yeah. And who are your friends? The ones that tell you what you want to hear, or the ones that tell you the truth?
Yeah.
That's the way I look at finding information to back up what I'm saying or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And this is one of the things I always loved about Malcolm X. I he's one of my heroes. I loved the autobiography and just his book. I mean, his life. But one of the things he said, now this was somebody who was very, by some people's perspectives, very extreme in their belief systems, as at the time, being in the Nation of Islam. Very much a racially influenced. I mean, so there's but he said, because see, when he was in prison, he read the entire dictionary, he read the Bible, he read the Quran, and his philosophy was, I want to expose myself to everything that's out there, to include those things that are diametrically opposed to my own belief systems, so that I can so he can grow, and I always admired that. I forgot why I brought that up. Must be because it's time for the siesta.
Yeah.
You look beautiful today, and I'm really happy to be part of this collaboration in the unfolding and further blossoming of Kirsty. Because I know you'd mentioned that last time about how you were getting the call to come out, and I wanted to ask you real quick. Might as well do it right now. So you've been having problems going online. Are you using Zoom?
No, it's just if I do a video, it will be fine. But as soon as I try to speak live, it's, and cutting out, and and I started to think, oh, is this the dark forces, messing that narrative, jumping to conclusion thing? But it's just in England we have a saying called sod's law. Yeah, but all I'm saying is that's my message. Make sure that people don't jump to conclusions, because that day you having problems, someone else had put that they were meant to be doing something and technology had messed up, and the amount of people that went on and put, it's the Illuminati or all sorts of, I don't know, everything. I thought, this is the problem. The spiritual community have got to rein themselves in a little bit. We have got to check ourselves in a little bit here.
Self-empowerment is self-empowerment.
Yeah.
So there's no exceptions, and that's one thing I've tried to stay on top of, is my sovereignty, my power in any dimension, any timeline. I take myself through these exercises of what would happen if, these big ETs appeared before me and threatened me. What can I do? Like physically, I'm not in the same category, but I'm just like, I'm sovereign. I am soul, no matter what. This is what I know, and I think this is what we're really talking about. I think these comments of many people waking up lately. I mean, look at the circumstances, the stories, the narratives, the whatever you want to call it, the distortion that's been put out there. There is another side to it, and it is the side of people are going, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense. And eventually we look at each other and we look at ourselves, and this is how it happens.
It has got to be a coming out, but we've got to be careful what we jump to.
Absolutely.
I mean, history tells us this, doesn't it? We know we don't want to be back repeated. The First World War, the amount of men that went to war and died for all the wrong reasons, weren't told the truth. We've come way beyond this now. We've had enough of it. But it doesn't necessarily mean that certain narratives are happening, stories. Got to stay in reality. I'll just tell you something quickly. Like, I just wanted to say, when you interviewed David Icke, the thing that stood out to me, because he's a local celebrity where I live. He lives near me, so I see him in the shops and pubs and things. But he has a sort of name for being certain labels and agendas being attached to his name. Topics of conversation. And you could see he's sort of ready. And he's been attacked, hasn't he, throughout his whole life, right? And you said to him, right, I want to ask you, and you were asking him your questions, and you started off with asking him about what he'd experienced of everyone being, not believing him and that sort of thing. And I wanted to say that I felt that his whole energy shifted at that point, and he absolutely was so pleased to. And he suddenly said, "Oh, I could talk about this for ages now. I didn't know it." And one thing I've noticed about you is that you're a shapeshifter energy. You have that ability to, like a mediator, we would call it in the business world. You have that ability to get in, and that's a really powerful tool, and that's why you're doing the job you do. However, I'd love to have the time to talk to Morgan one day.
Well, I'll go hit her up right now. You want to talk to her online or privately?
No, here. I think me and her ought to do something one day.
I'm all for it.
Yeah,
I'm all for it. That'd be awesome.
I think
I'll be hitting her up on that in a few minutes. It's good seeing you. And how's your daughter doing today?
Yeah, she's a lot better now. She's just resting now, and she'll be fine. Yeah.
I'm sending you healing, peace, and comfort for you and your family. And I'll see you again. We'll do it in a few weeks again. And let me know if I can help you in any way.
Thank you very much. No, it's good to chat. Thank you.
You take care. I love you.